Hi everyone, my name is Elaine, and today, with a little help from Jeremy, I'm going to review as well as explain how to play an adorable Kickstarter game I received in the mail recently, Plantopia. It's a game by Life of a Potato and Daryl Chow for 2 to 5 players ages 10 and up, and it should take about 30 minutes to play. Plantopia is set in a galaxy far, far away, and in this realm of Plantopia, a mixture of fruits and vegetables known as rocket salad or sometimes just Potato and his friends are out exploring this galaxy. And during their explorations, they find a new planet, and they decide to land on this planet, and they find that it's a lush green one, where plants from all stalks of life rule the realm. They call this planet Plantopia. Roll credits. And now, Potato and his friends find themselves on a new quest to help the residents of Plantopia grow their gardens to their full potential. Will you, as the players, aka Rocket Salad or Potato and his friends, be able to help this civilization reach its full potential? Will you help them make their gardens flourish, or do you lack a green thumb, as they say? Let's find out and see how this game is played. Setup for the game is really, really easy. First, you're going to create a deck of plant cards. You're going to put them face down. Those are these guys over here. And then you're going to deal 6 cards to each player. I've set up a 2-player game. You can see I've already dealt a hand of cards to each player. This is the Potato's hand of cards. From that point, the players look at their deck of cards, or rather their hand of cards, and they decide whether or not they like them. If they like them, they keep them. If they don't, they can take a chance. They can gamble. They can actually discard all of their cards to redraw up to a hand of 6. But you can only do that once. So that's why it's a bit of a gamble. You can wind up with a hand that's better, you could wind up with a hand that's just as bad, or you could wind up with something even worse. I'm an unlucky person, so this is never something that I've actually done, whether or not I liked my hand, because I feel like the Plantopia gods just don't love me, and it won't be good. But it's nice to have that option if you really just do not like your hand. From there, you give the players their weather cards. Those are these guys over here. There is a little raindrop, a happy little sun, and a kind of perplexed looking little cloud over here. Each of those weather cards corresponds to a certain one of the player characters. As you can see, the Potatoes is closest to me. Then you hand out the player aids. Those are these guys over here. And they remind you of things like the planting phase and the weather phase, and there's also a little glossary index on the back. If you're playing with less than 5 players, like in this game of 2, you're going to shuffle the weather cards from the unused characters into a deck. And this is going to become the weather deck. And you're going to put it in an accessible place. I put them in the middle of the playing area over here. Then you hand out the planter cards. Those are these guys. You get 5 of them. And they're going to be placed in front of each player in the middle of their playing area. This is known as the garden. Those that are not used for each player, you don't need for the game, and you could just put them back in the box. There are also some bonus weather cards. They're exactly what they say they are. They're bonus weather cards. You put them in the side for future gameplay. I don't have them out here. There's not enough room, unfortunately, with the camera setup. But keep them in an accessible place. You're good to go. Then from there, if you decide that you do want to play with character powers, all of the different vegetables and fruit have a character power. For example, for the potato over here, he starts with an extra 4 cards. So if you're playing with those, you hand out whatever those ability cards. For the potato, start with a hand of 10. So I'm just going to add 4 cards here. So beautiful. Boop. There you go. And as you can see in the case of the mushroom, they get a bonus weather card of each type. And I've already put those under their starting weather cards. Now that you're all set up, you're ready to play the game. Jeremy is going to tell you just how to do that in a moment.
The aim of Plantopia is really simple. It's just to try and get as many of these little rainbow colored leaves as possible. That's essentially your victory points. Certain cards have different ways to get them, but the primary way is by growing your plants and then timesing them by the level of the plant. In terms of how the gameplay actually goes, it's really simple. You have 2 phases, the planting phase and the weather phase. We're going to start by discussing the planting phase. In the planting phase, you have 3 actions that you can perform, and you have to choose from those 3 actions. So the first action you can perform is to plant a plant. So let's look at this guy. This is a baby plant. You can tell by the color down here as well as the symbol. The circular ones are the baby plants, and the yellow also represents baby plants. But this guy, he costs 1 card to plant. So you'd have to go through your cards, and let's just pick a random card. So this card, we're going to discard this card. We discard him into the discard pile over here. And that allows us to plant him. So we would take it here, he would start off as a level 0. You always want to plant your cards so it shows what level of card it is just below it. So as you grow them, it will change where the position of the card is on the planter. Your second action that you can do on your turn, you can only choose one of these, but this is another option that you have, is to grow a plant. So say you have this plant here, you want to grow the plant, you have to pay that number of cards to grow it. So you're going to have to discard one card. Let's pick another card. Let's go the Catalily. We're going to discard that one. That allows us to grow this to a level 1 plant. Your third option during the planting phase is that you can draw 5 cards. So you would draw those from here. Look at them. And you get to discard 3 of them. So you end up keeping 2. So just from what I remember out of my hand, I'm going to get rid of these because we already have a bunch of tree evolved versions of this kind of plant. So we're going to put that down, and now that gave us some more cards. Why might you want to choose that? You might want to choose that because you don't have tree evolved plants, or you don't have things that you can plant, or you just need to get more cards into your hand in order for you to discard to plant cards. Now, another version of planting that I want to go over is tree evolving. And that is when you have a baby plant here and you want to turn it into a tree evolved plant, which you're always kind of going for. So let's look for a tree evolved version of the cactus here. So we have this right here. You can see there's extra ways for you to gain points at the bottom here. They're usually worth more points. See, this one's worth 2 leaves per level. This one's worth 1 leaf per level. But they have a cost. They're usually harder to grow. They require more weather to grow. And they usually cost specific plants to grow them. So in this case, it requires a baby plant that's of the cactus type. And it needs to be at level 1. We happen to be at that position right now. So we're going to sacrifice this guy to the Plantopia gods and grow a Batis. And he goes in at level 0. The big important thing about tree evolved plants is they're the thing that's going to kick in the win condition, because the end game doesn't start until you get to a point where one of the players has 4 tree evolved plants in their garden, whether it's in the planters or it's already leveled up. Another point I want to discuss about growing, and this can also be affected in the weather phase too, but we're going to go over it now, is if you do manage to grow your plant up to a level 3 plant, it gets removed from the planter, gets placed, turned sideways like this, and this will now always count as a level 3 plant for you. If you needed to, if this was a baby plant, or even if you wanted to get rid of a adult plant, but this would always count as a level 3 plant that you could sacrifice, but it also kind of just hangs out here and doesn't take up space in your planters. We're going to move him back to here just so we can go over the weather phase. So now we are in the weather phase. In the weather phase, you're going to choose among your weather cards which one you want to play. So you can always tell yours because the back here, this nice shiny back, you can see it gets kind of smudged very easily with the holographic cards. But it'll have your person on it. You're like on the potato here, and it'll also have it in the bottom there. So you're going to choose one of these to play out. Your opponent is going to choose one, but something that determines it is you do get to actually see what comes out of the deck. That's if you're playing less than 5 people. So you would want to shuffle this ahead of time. These are all the other player cards that are not currently in play. And each weather phase, you're going to deal out 2 face up. I'm going to put them right here so it's easy to see. So this will be the next one. And this one will go face down. So, in this case, you as a player would get to look at yours and go, what do I need? Well, I want to grow my Batis. So my Batis needs 1 sun, 1 rain, and 1 storm. Or wind, I guess. So you, if you want to assure yourself that you're going to get the one that you need, you might want to play the storm card or the wind card. So, and say your opponent played, it doesn't really matter what your opponent plays at this point. So they play one there. Then the ones that haven't been revealed get revealed simultaneously. So, oh, we didn't even need to play it because it already got there. And there we go. So now this guy reached the weather conditions he needs to grow, so he's just going to grow. Something to go over about the weather phase, though, is if you have a plant that requires, say, less. So say we're doing this one. We have this one. This is a level 0 plant at the moment. I'm just going to pick all these up. So he needs sun and rain. Say that the end result, after everything is revealed, looks like this. So these are the revealed cards. You have 2 sun and rain combinations, which would allow you to level this up twice. So this would now be a level 2 card. So you're looking at each of the weather conditions combinations independently. So it is possible to level up one plant multiple times using the weather phase, which is not the case during the grow phase of the planting phase, during the growing action of the planting phase, because you can only grow each of your plants once. So how does the game end? The game ends when one player, at least one player, has gotten 4 tree evolved plants in their garden or on their planters. So you can tell that by this little symbol here. It's like hexagonal symbol with the plant symbol inside of it. That means it's tree evolved. It'll also have the cost thing up here. And after the weather phase of that turn, then everybody tallies up their points. Since turns are not something that you take one right after another, everybody is acting simultaneously, so you finish out that turn. How do you determine who wins? You're going to look at these little rainbow leaves up in the corner here, and you're going to multiply them by the level of the plant. So this one down here would be a level 3, so it would be 2 times 3, so that would be worth 6 points. This one would be 2 times 1, so that's 2 points, 2 times 1, 2 times 1. Then there's going to be extra conditions that determine extra points down here for most of the cards. So like this one will give you 2 points for each tree evolved cactus and tree evolved of this plant, which I don't remember, tree. And that will also count itself. If you look at, so something like this would be the flowers. And this would be cactus and flowers. So there's going to be a lot of different wind conditions. There's going to be ones that are based on different plant types. There's going to be ones that are based on specific plant types, like the ones you see there, or based on the number of cards that you have, or like this one here. This one is, you get 2 points for each level 3 plant that you have. That counts babies and tree evolved plants. So once you tally up all of those points, you're going to know who wins. Most points wins, like in most games. So now that you know how to play, I'm going to meet you back up top, and we'll discuss our final thoughts of the game.
Now that you guys all know the basic premise behind this game and how it's played, I want to take some time to review it, and I'm just going to jump right into things. First of all, this game is very family friendly. Its art is definitely rated G. It has a gardening theme, so that's something that everyone can partake in. It's not violent because it's, gardening plants. The manufacturers say that this game is for people 10 and above, but I feel like you could get away with kids who are a little younger than that. I don't think it's a very complicated game. I think you could definitely teach it to people very easily, and I feel like most 7 and 8-year-olds should be able to grasp this concept as well, and you could play it with your younger children. No problem whatsoever. I also like that this game is very shelf and table friendly. I'm someone who has a very large game collection. Jeremy has a very large game collection, and we don't have the most space to play these games or store these games. And I know a lot of people, especially people who live in, let's say, inner cities, don't have a lot of space. So having something that's shelf and table friendly is great. Just to put it into perspective, the box that I received is roughly the size of like an Exploding Kittens box or Unstable Unicorns. Definitely not something that's going to take up a lot of space, and when you're playing it, probably takes about the same amount of space as either of those games. I really like the fact that this game has really, really cute art. I'm in love with the art. I think the artist did a great job. The only thing I would say, though, is that there is white space behind each of the plants. And I thought it might have been nice to maybe put some sort of texture thing behind it. Let's say if you have a cactus, maybe some sort of sandy thing in the background so there's not that white space. Because I feel like when we're young, especially when we're growing up with things like coloring books, we're conditioned to hate white space. So there is a part of me that just doesn't like it and thinks maybe something like that would make it look even nicer than it already looks. But again, I love the art. Being a little nitpicky here, nothing really needs to be changed. Perhaps just improved. But again, great art. Don't think that anyone's going to dislike it at all. It's very, very nice. We found that the playtime listed on the box is fairly accurate. It says 30 minutes. Most of our games took about this long, but there were times when the game was a little shorter than this, let's say 20 minutes or so, and we even had a game that was about 15 minutes. This makes it really good as a filler game, you know, when you're in those situations where you have only a certain amount of time and maybe you don't really want to do anything crazy, but you want something to fill up that space and you just don't know what to do with yourself. This game is perfect for those types of situations. We also found that the holographics smudge easily, but the card quality is good overall. However, some of the cards arrived slightly bent. Nothing major, but just something that happens with a lot of packing of this type of game. We also didn't like the giant folding paper rulebook. We would prefer an actual book, which is just easier to manage. The examples included within the book were helpful as well, as was the glossary. And we like that this was included as well because sometimes rules aren't very clear, and having something like that makes it all the more clear and easier to play and grasp the game. We also like the fact that the game was really easy to set up as well as put away. With that being said, the rulebook did not specify if you can sacrifice higher value cards for Treevolution, but it would make sense that you could do this. We also wondered if the extra point or two, whatever it would happen to be, was carried over or not. Because this is something that makes you have to plan when you do things, or you may have a card that's too strong to level the plant up. We also like the lack of a hand limit because that's something that comes up in a lot of the card games we play. We just get to a point where we have too many cards, but we don't want to get rid of anything, and then we have to because rules. And that's no fun. We also like the fact that you can swap out cards in the beginning because sometimes you just get unlucky and you don't like your hand of cards, so having that second chance is really, really nice for people who just aren't dealt a good hand. We also felt that it was hard to get Treevolution sometimes and certain cards into your hand because of the way cards are drawn and things like that. Like there were several games where all I had were little plants, the little babies, and I couldn't get anywhere or progress my chances at winning the game or really progress at all because I just could not get these cards into my hand, and that was a little annoying. I know there's always a certain luck aspect to games, but this felt like sometimes that there was more of a luck aspect than there should be, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. We also felt that some of the starter abilities were more helpful than others, like the fact that the potato gets those extra cards. Yeah, the potato won basically all of our games. It could just be luck of the draw, I'm not really sure, but we both feel that that ability worked a little better than some of the others, although I played the mushroom the first time around and I felt like his ability was pretty good too. Having those bonus weather cards was very, very nice. As long as you remember to play them. The first time I played, I kind of ignored them until like the last round of the game, and that was silly. There's also a solo mode, which we'll talk about more in an upcoming video, but it's nice to have that. Not all games have that, and quite frankly, they should, because sometimes you just don't have other people to play with, and you just want something to do, and you can't because you don't got a buddy, but this game allows you to play with yourself. That sounds really weird. Ignore what I just said. We'll talk about it more in an upcoming video, but like I said, it's very nice that they have this feature for people who want to have it. As I mentioned at the start of this review, I bought a Kickstarter version of this game, so there is some content in my version of the game that you will not get if you were to buy this game now. I received some stickers, which I really don't know what I'm going to do with. Maybe I'll give them to a little cousin or something, as well as something called the Garden City Seed Pack. It's just a bunch of extra cards, essentially, both tree evolved ones and little baby ones that you could add to your game. I would say they add variety more than they add depth. They don't drastically change gameplay. They really don't change your gameplay at all, but they add more cards and more ways to score points. So it might adjust your strategy a little bit as long as you know what the symbols are. When you're first playing, it might take you a little bit to get the symbols, even with the glossary. They're nice to have, but like I said, they don't really change anything much. The art is really adorable. I like how they're themed for certain sections of the world, like they're 3 for Singapore, for example. But again, just variety, not really adding any spice, if you will, to the game. And there you have it. That is our summary and review of the new Kickstarter game, Plantopia. If you like what you saw here today, if you have any questions, if you back this game, let us know down below. We always like to know what you guys think. Again, if you love what you saw here, give us a thumbs up, smash that like button till it's blue, subscribe, ring that bell so you'll know what's up, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, guys!